Welcome to the Opt-in Podcast. I'm Elsa Franks, your host, and this is where we go from surviving to thriving inside of business. And this episode is the one that I get to do 4 times a year. It is quarter in review, and frankly, I almost forgot about it. I'm not really sure how, except that I've just been so busy and in the midst of doing all of the things that the end of the first quarter sailed past me. So I'm going to take that as a really, really good sign. For those of you that are new here, one of the reasons that I do the quarter in review is because I look at my year in 12-week sprints. I have found that while I have a big grandiose plan for the whole 12 months, that in order to get there, it helps me to really focus in 3-month sprints to go from point A to point B. So as we have all been together now for, 15 months. I feel like that's how old the podcast is. You have heard me go through a variety of these, and they have been incredibly different and sometimes vague and all the things. So I'm going to try to be as transparent as possible as I can with you about the first quarter of 2024. I can't even believe that we are there. This is all going to be business focused today. There's not a lot that I need to update you from a personal life standpoint. I am still a single mom of 3 boys. I am still juggling all of the things and making sure they get to all of the places on time. If you follow me on Instagram, you can follow along because it's sometimes hilarious, sometimes frustrating, sometimes downright, did that really just happen to you? But that is for our Instagram viewing, and it is not for the podcast today. What I want to talk to you about today is a variety of dimensions. So as all of you know, last fall, the startup that I was working for failed. And so I had to do like a massive, massive pivot and basically hang a shingle for a management consultancy agency ASAP, because gotta get food on the table, gotta get some work done. And so that we did. We popped that up right away. And while that was happening, one of the other things that I was doing was searching for full-time employment. And I want to talk about that first, because I don't think that we have had that conversation, and B, there's not enough light shed on it. And I think that it would be really important for all of you, if you do, in fact, aspire to become an executive or a senior executive or a chief fill in the blank, what that really entails and looks like. So as all of you know, I'm a chief operating officer by trade. I have been a chief operating officer for 6 years, 5 years, 6 years, 6 years. See, can't even forget it. And really what that means is that I have spent time learning the art of business, and I can sit side by side with CEOs and I can help operationalize or integrate or implement what they plan and envision for their business. I'm the number 2 in generally the hierarchy, and we're the office of getting shit done. That's basically how I refer to operations. There's an idea that comes up, or there is a problem that is pointed out, and ops gets it done. So I know how to do that really, really well. The thing with that is that generally, regardless of the business, the operations function has a pretty good sized team. And it's usually 50% of the organization, if not more, because IT usually sits inside of operations. And what that means is that in order for me to get a chief operating officer role inside of a new company, whatever it is, there would be a variety of requirements for me. One could be that I need to be in the office full time. I need to be there. I need to be there 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 or 8 to 7. I've got to be there full time. Another could be that there's travel requirements. And in fact, it could be that I need to be in the office full time and I need to travel. It could be that I need to work in a different time zone. It could be that I have a hybrid situation where half of the week I'm in one locale and half of a week I'm in another. And when I was living in a 2-parent household, theoretically, the world was my oyster. I could travel when I needed to. I could work full-time in an office if I needed to. I could do a lot of things. The reality is now I'm a single provider, and I have 3 children who are really busy, and I can't drive to San Francisco, which for me, just proximity wise, all of y'all, I'd be in the car about 3 hours a day. I can't do that. I can't get on a plane every other week. I just cannot, those are not realities and practicalities. And further to that, what I discovered in the fourth quarter was it's really not feasible for me, based on their schedules and my desire to keep things consistent with them, for me to be sitting inside of an office after about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Can I continue to work? Yes. Is it sporadic? Yes. And so based on all of those factors, while I'm still looking for full-time employment and there are still conversations to be had and they were like long tail, because that's the other thing, is becoming a chief operating officer somewhere else is not a fast thing. You don't raise your hand and say, I'm available, and then you get a job later. It generally takes a year to 18 months to make a move like that. And there's a lot of complications with those things. So it is a long play kind of situation. So with all of those things said, based on where just life was taking us, I made a decision to pull back on full-time employment searches, not stop, but pull back and be super selective about the conversations I was having, how I was communicating the opportunities that I was open to taking, what the constraints and requirements are, etc. And I decided to go all in on the consultancy. And that was incredibly scary. So as we got to January of 2024, one client for 15 hours a week, and it was a friend. So we negotiated terms that were mutually beneficial. And I had been looking for new clients for 2 months. I had no idea what I was doing. I had never stood up an agency before. I had dabbled in trying to start businesses and they hadn't been successful in the past. I don't know how many businesses I started that didn't go anywhere. I think we're probably at like 5. This might be the 6th business, to be honest, that I've started. And so it was with a lot of trepidation that I kind of jumped into the deep end of the swimming pool and said, I'm either going to sink or swim. And what I did is I got really, really intentional with how I networked. I got really, really intentional with who I was talking to. I got really, really intentional with my offers and the sort of work that I was looking for, and specifically the sort of clients and companies that I wanted to partner myself with, as well as the requirements for me to work with them. I also got really, really specific around how much of my time I could sell at any given time. And that was a really significant point of clarity for me, because once I honed in on all of that in January, then I could start communicating to my network what I was looking for. Then I could start putting offers out. And at the same time, I had joined a mastermind and coaching community, specifically because I knew that I didn't know how to run a business like this. I didn't know how to start a business like this. Did I know how to go out and talk to people and pitch and try to get business? Yes. But did I actually know how to structure this and have a continuing pipeline of customers and interest? No. And I would even say that the proof had been in the pudding, because I had tried 5 other businesses and they had all not been successful. So I took a little bit of a leap and got some help. And now many of you would say, have you lost your mind? Like, you were barely working, then you get some help, and how are you going to live? Well, got a little scary. I'm not gonna lie. It was a really challenging time, and so I had to work a lot on my mindset. I really had to focus on what we were going to be, where we were, what I was going to achieve, how I was going to get there, what I was going to do. There was a lot of clutter I had to work through. There was a lot of limiting beliefs that I had to work through. There were some days where I had to pull myself out of bed and just say, you've got it. You'll figure it out. It's all going to be okay, even if I didn't believe it. And I kept having conversations. Just like I've talked to all of you about networking when you're looking for a job, it's the same as networking when you're looking for a client. I continue to get on phone calls. I continue to communicate, continue to create content. I continue to do things like host webinars and have nobody show up. I continue to offer and offer and offer and offer, because the momentum was going to get me somewhere. And so as I was going through this, I started to get potential leads and I started to have conversations, and some people were ready and some people weren't, but that was okay because there was interest, there was value. And what I realized, the reason that the other businesses didn't succeed was because I was trying to do something that I tangentially had the skills for. And what I mean by that is I could do the business, it made sense, but I wasn't like qualified. Like I didn't have this depth of evidence that I was the expert, I had mastery, this is why you should work with me and be a customer of this business. This is different. My business is called On Call COO, which means that I am a fractional or a part-time COO for small businesses. So they get what they need and then they continue to do most of the work on their own. And I know how to do that. I've been a COO for 6 years. I have 25 years of corporate experience behind me. I have seen every possible scenario through bankruptcies and mergers and acquisitions to sales to being in 9-figure debt and needing to pull ourselves out of it. I have seen just about everything in exponential growth. I mean, I could continue to list it. And so I know without a shadow of doubt that I have the expertise and that I can help these small businesses. And it was just such a different perspective to realize that the business that I was selling, the services I was packaging, I have demonstrated evidence. I'm an expert in this space. Like there was a level of confidence and certainty with this one that was so different than the rest. And so I began to communicate that and I began to market it and I began to network. And that was really my focus for the first quarter, was getting this baby business up and off the ground and understanding how much I could put on my plate and how much I couldn't. It was also a really great time for me to assess the sort of clients that I do and don't want to have, and the sort of work that I do and don't want to do, and how I want to be spending my time, because it's really easy for you to take the first opportunity that comes to you and then get inside of a business and say, they're a little bit misaligned to my values, or I'm doing work that I know is better suited to be done by somebody else, or I'm providing advice and nobody's listening. You know, there's a lot of that can go on. And so one of the things that I have been refining and working through is how I select clients to pitch to and kind of what that screening criteria and that selection criteria is. And so that business started, you know, along its merry way. And then as things go, because they go, in February, I had another opportunity presented to me. And now this one was really interesting because my initial reaction was, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, very seriously, that was my initial reaction. So it was very early in February. I vividly remember where I was. So I had one client for 15 hours a week. I had thought I was going to get a second client, and then that didn't fall through. That fell through and was kind of pushed to maybe second quarter. Spoiler alert, never materialized. And I was kind of like looking around and saying, like, where's the next thread? Where's the next conversation? Where can I find the next lead? I'm not really sure what to do. I was a little bit at a crossroads and anxiety was creeping in as much as I was trying to push it out. So I get a direct message on Instagram from somebody that I know and like and trust and respect, and ask for a phone call. And I'm like, this is really weird. But sure, because if she ever asks, I will call immediately. And so I did. And through the course of that conversation, she shared with me like a brand new business that had come to the US. It was less than a year old, and was really positioned for some dynamic exponential growth this year. And it caught my attention because I like ground floor opportunities. I like going into businesses where they finally figured it out and they're about to like rocket ship into the atmosphere. I really, really enjoy those sorts of opportunities. And so she caught my interest. And then, of course, because I do due diligence on everything, I immediately went into due diligence mode. And so I had a million questions. I did all of the things that I would normally do to vet a company. So when anybody comes to me for advisement, one of the things that I do is a pretty thorough assessment of their business, because I want to know what I'm getting into. What are the gotchas? What are the things that they haven't done? Where are the pitfalls? Where can I get myself wrapped into something where I could be personally liable and it could be too risky for me to do? Because that's the other thing, folks, you've got to remember when you work for yourself, You get insurance, but you're still liable for decisions that you make, actions that you take, etc. So you have to be really, really careful, especially the sort of work that I do. So I did due diligence on this opportunity, and then I came back to her and I said, hey, you know what? This looks really sound. I can't really find a flaw. I just have to decide if I want to do it, basically. And the reason that I say that is because what she was pitching to me was a direct sales opportunity. And if you know me, not through this podcast, but through other things, I have been partnered with a variety of direct sales companies over like the last 8 years. It's not something that's foreign to me. I've done it quite a few times. I've never been super successful at it, but I've definitely made enough money to like buy all the Christmas presents for a Christmas season and pay for family vacations. And quite frankly, my direct sales money that was just sitting around collecting interest is what bridged the gap for me kind of December, January, February of this year. So I have a lot of respect and value for direct sales. The thing is that the company that I had been with the last time, I made a bunch of changes and it just wasn't in my best interest to continue to work with them because I was working and not getting paid comparably. So when she presented this to me, after I did all the diligence and really thought about it, I said, well, I have one client working 15 hours a week. What's the worst thing that could happen? And so I said yes. And lo and behold, last month I did more in volume than I ever did in a quarter at the prior company, even the best quarter that I had. And while the paychecks are not things to be like getting the big old check and printing it out and carrying it around right now, this opportunity is continuing to exponentially grow. And the reason that I said yes, and you're probably wondering, well, so why are you doing 2 businesses at once? Was because sometimes you have to get scrappy. When it comes down to needing to keep the lights on and put gas in the car and feed the kids and like do all of those things, you aren't necessarily in a privileged place to say, I've tried that and I don't want to try it again. Sometimes you have to look at it from all the angles and say, is this the thing that could incrementally improve the current circumstance? And the answer was yes. And so while I had this customer, this client at 15 hours a week, and she was my first client, and then I was able to layer this in, it just started to create some momentum and some breathing room and some confidence that like we were going to figure this out. And then I took one more gamble, because if you know me, you know that I play to win. And so in February, I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision on if I was going to go to an in-person event for a few days. And what I did know with certainty is that I'd be in a room full of entrepreneurs. So maybe there were potentially people that I could work with. Maybe they knew people, because entrepreneurs know entrepreneurs. Maybe they knew people that I could work with. But it was a little bit of a gamble. It was a little bit of, if I spend the money to go, will it pay off? And this was very similar to that decision that I had made a few months earlier with aligning myself with a mastermind and a coach. If I do this, is it going to pay off? Is it going to yield the benefit that I'm expecting? And I was really apprehensive. So I waited until like the absolute last moment to make a decision about whether or not I was going to go. And eventually I said I would regret it forever if I didn't. And so I went all in, and I did all the things, and I was there, and I was invested, and I left that event having pitched one of my dream clients. Like one of the companies, when I started my consultancy, I kind of wrote down the top 5 businesses that I would want to partner with if I could. So if I could pitch anybody in the world and they would say yes, who would they be? And this company was one of the top 5 that I had written down. And I had the opportunity to pitch them. And by the end of that week, we had entered an agreement, a 6-month agreement. And it was such a sigh of relief. It was such a moment of validation and encouragement And man, it was just like that moment of like, this is going to work. It's going to work. It might be slow and it might not be lucrative initially, but it's going to pay the bills and it's going to work. And it's just the beginning, right? So I started the first quarter with one client who was getting a real big discount. And honestly, I wasn't certain how much longer that was going to go, because initially it had started with like a month. It was going to be a 1 month assignment, and then it became 2. And then by the time we wrapped it up, it was 5. So I'm very grateful to her that we ended up working together for 5 months. And we were both ready for a change. That her business wasn't quite ready for support that I could provide. And it's a little bit in its year of it needs to prove itself. And so I wish them all well, and it created room for me to take this new opportunity, and it created room for me to think about how I want to support businesses going forward. And at the same time, it also created room for me to take up this new opportunity that my friend brought me that has been helpful, that has a lot of potential for long-term future growth and runway that could be game-changing for me and the kids long-term. And so what I have learned in this first quarter is having unwavering belief is critical. Making a decision and then going all in directionally is the difference between winning and losing. Having that unwavering belief in yourself first means that others will believe because they'll see you believing it so much. Having mastery and demonstrating that mastery over and over and over again is how I will grow my businesses. Also being really clear on what I will and won't do. That was really game changing, because when I was in December and January, and like anybody that would like peek around the corner and say, oh, hey, maybe you can help me, I was saying, yes, I can figure it out. I can help you. And not in a desperate way, but in a I'll do whatever it takes way. And when a couple of deals fell through in January, I was able to sit back and say, that was really for the best. Those weren't deals I wanted to do. I wasn't going to do my best work there because I wasn't super excited about their business model or what they were trying to achieve or the problems that they were trying to address. And so getting clarity on who I serve and what I will and what I won't do, incredibly helpful and important and freeing, because now there's direction and there's a kind of a criteria for how I will say yes and will say no to things. And the other thing that I will say is that taking big risks is how I got to where I am. If I had continued to listen to my fear, if I had continued to play it safe, I wouldn't have closed the dream client deal in March. I wouldn't have started with this new company that my friend recommended. I would now probably be sitting in a position where I didn't have any clients at all. It would be a very different situation. I mean, as it is, I have a slowly growing consultancy, and I have proven value, and I am enjoying everything that I do. So my first quarter in review is an interesting one, because on one hand, I have continued to have conversations with the couple of companies that I could see myself having a full-time role with long-term. And like I said, they are so slow going, and it's okay. Like, I'm actually okay that it's moving so slowly, because it will help me really understand if I want to continue to work for myself or I want to go back to working for somebody else. I'm not in a rush for those things to manifest themselves into fruition, because I need the time to figure this out. So I continued, on the job search and the conversations, and, personally, we just got really streamlined. Like, it's really clear what we need to live and be happy with and what we don't. And that in itself has been a bit of a relief. And then I have focused on things that I'm passionate about. How can I build this business and do it in a way that I'm doing work that I love and I'm adding value to people's lives, and we're both winning on both sides of the equation. What does that look like? And it's early. The first quarter has just wrapped. I will say if I can have a second quarter like the first quarter, I'm going to be feeling significantly more comfortable. But I'm trying some new things. So for the next 90 days, the next 12 weeks, I am testing out a couple of different approaches to being more findable out there in the world, to being able to help more entrepreneurs that are at their early end of their business growing adventure. And I'm throwing myself into more big situations where I can network and build relationships and make connections and maybe find some more leads. I'm continuing to take risks. I'm continuing to be adventurous. I'm continuing to believe in myself and demonstrate what is possible. And the last thing that I'll say is that in all of this, one of the things that I have realized is I can still work my ass off because I really like to work, and also have the freedom to take my kids during spring break to get an ice cream at 2:30 in the afternoon. It does not diminish my delivery for my clients. It does not diminish my excellence as a professional. It does not diminish the integrity of my business because I can do both. I can be present where I need to be present, and I can also serve my clients really, really well. And I never thought that you could do both well. I never thought that you could work really hard and work full time and be very, very, very successful and also be 100% present and invested in your life. I always thought you had to make a decision. You always had to make a trade-off. And I will tell you that this season that I'm in, I know without any uncertainty that I can do both and I'm doing both well. And that probably is the most rewarding part of all of it. So I'm going into the second quarter with some new goals set. I'm not going to say what those are out loud, but I've got some pretty audacious goals. And I'm really excited about where this is going to be. By the time we talk again for a quarter in review, it's going to be a hullabaloo of a quarter. There's going to be so much done, and I can't wait to share with you all of the wins. But I just want to encourage you that if you don't do these quarter in reviews, that maybe after you listen to this podcast, just spend a little bit of time and write down your wins and your losses. Just spend a little bit of time and say, what went really, really well? Where did I really, really win the day in the quarter, and where did I set goals and I just missed the mark? Maybe they were the wrong goal. Maybe they were not scaled correctly, meaning that like you thought you could get it done in 2 weeks and it's really going to take 2 months. Maybe priorities shifted, but spend some time looking back at your quarter. How did it go? How did you feel? How much did you work? How much did you get to do the things that you care about? Are you tired? Were you sick the whole time? Just like take stock of the whole you. Would you repeat the quarter again if you could? That's always a really great question to ask. And then as you start to look forward to this second quarter, because for those of you in corporate, you're going to end up having a mid-year review at the end of this next 12-week period. What goals do you want to set to get you to those mid-year targets? What goals do you want to set or reset because you're misfiring the quarter prior? Have priorities shifted and you need to set new goals and abandon others? This is a really good time for you to kind of reset, because where you'll end up is mid-year at the end of this quarter. And what you don't want to do is end up surprising yourself at mid-year that you haven't achieved or made progress against the goals that you've set out for yourself and your performance is being measured by. So it's really a time to take stock right now, because you still have 12 weeks to make some adjustments and to communicate to your manager if you need to, that things need to change, etc. So that is my recommendation to you as we enter this next 12-week cycle. And I hope that by me sharing kind of where I have been and where I am going, it inspires you to evaluate and rethink and set new boundaries, and take risks if that's what you want to do. So this is a short and sweet one this week. I hope that you enjoyed it. And until we meet again, friends, please know that you are wise and you are strong and you are capable, and I believe in you.